Good morning, Gooners, and welcome to another Rip Roaring Reds. You're joining Jason and I on a drab, wet Sunday morning after the snow has settled and then been washed away, and all that is left is this horrible feeling that matches probably both of our attitudes. So on this Sunday morning, Chase, how are you feeling maybe 12 hours removed from Arsenal's draw at Brighton?
Well, it's not ruined my weekend, but I'm not going to say I'm happy about it. It was... it's a very different. We'll go into the detail, but it was just frustrating that we couldn't put that game to bed, and I think that's our fault. Just to be clear, and we'll go on to talk about that. That's. I don't think it's necessary to do with the ref or to do with Brighton. I think that's us and a failure of tactics and the way in which we play. But apart from that, I'm good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm not. Well, maybe I'm not letting it ruin my weekend. Let's see. I've had enough of those. But if you are joining us, either as a regular viewer or listener or as a newbie, welcome to the channel. Myself and Jace review almost every single Arsenal game. If you'd like the content here, then please do give the video a like. Please do give the channel a subscribe. And please do leave a comment down below what you thought about this Arsenal performance, that refereeing decision, and the overall game in general. We're going to do our tradition, as we always do with every single show, which is the Rip Roaring Review. It's our look back on Arsenal. It's our look at what has just happened. It's our quick snap at kind of our outlook on the Arsenal sphere, I guess. And Jace, I'm going to hand the baton straight over to you for your Rip Roaring Review.
Yeah, so my review today is that we need to start watching behind us. We need to start watching our tails. We might need to get a little bit nervy because it's not going to go as we think. I've seen a lot of stuff going around over the last few hours since the game, which is City are going to catch us before we catch Liverpool. It's almost like Pep's gone, I wanted to be so bad, so shit this first half of the season to see how hard I could make it for us. And like, if City come back and, you've seen, did you see the game against West Ham? And then obviously the game before that. So they're now hitting goals. It's that time of the year where they really turn the ignition on and put their foot down on the gas. And I'm like a little bit just thinking maybe it's as much as it sounds stupid. It's like, the City Thunderbolt is on its way. It's kind of bulldozing everything in its way, and it will probably keep going to the end of the season. So we got to keep picking up every single point, because as we'll be in third, maybe fourth. That's a little bit of my worry this morning, and I guess that's my main headline. Apart from obviously being a laughing stock because everyone thinks City will get us before we catch Liverpool, which is also not good.
You've made me check because I want to see how far behind they are. I thought it was a lot more. It's 6 points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm with you. I didn't even. Yeah, thanks. Another thing to worry about, Jace. Appreciate it. But yeah, a very astute observation that I didn't really consider myself. So yeah, not a nice Rip Roaring Review. A Rip Roaring Review, nonetheless.
Yeah. Go on then. What's yours?
Yeah, me. So I think regardless of that refereeing decision, whichever way you want to look at it, me and you are going to dissect it a little bit later on in the show. We simply weren't good enough, and we aren't good enough. And I looked back a little bit because I was trying to think of under Arteta, that first season where we competed, and I think you mentioned this on the last podcast. We were fun, we were exciting, we were dynamic, it was good to watch. And now we've become mechanical, we've become methodical, we've become boring. We've tried to pass teams to death. We've got no spark, no creativity. And yes, the lineup yesterday was imbalanced, and we're going to talk about that. We have injuries, we have missing players. But for me, it's just simply not good enough. That second half, and that's the part we are going to talk about, in my opinion, was shambolic. I think it was probably one of the worst second half performances we've dropped in a while. We've had multiple windows now to sort out our attack, and we've opted to sign more defensive players, yet still kept a lot of defensive players who are also incredibly injury prone, who are not getting in this starting 11. We've not shipped off Tierney. We've not shipped. Tomiyasu got a new contract. What we do? He just doesn't play any games. He plays like less than 60% of the games. And I'm just really worried that we continue to keep focusing. And this is another problem right now. We're injury laden across the back. And so I don't want to look at this window again where we're going to sign another left or right back. I've had enough of it. I really do think that if this again doesn't tell you that we need some reinforcements, I don't know what will. And that, unfortunately, has to lay at the door of Mikel Arteta. And it's just really frustrating because I love the manager. I still support him. I'm still completely behind him. I've got no qualms about that. It's just he is a young manager. This is his first job. There will be mistakes made. There will be decisions he gets wrong. And there are elements that there is only a saving grace that I've got on all of this, which is we have had some horrific decisions against us. We have had some absolutely shambolic teams that we fielded. If you look at that last back four against Liverpool that we ended on, which I think was Skelly, Kiwior, White, and Partey at right back, that's mad. And yet we're still here. We're still in second. We're still in the race, perhaps. So if we do end up doing something this season, it will be some kind of miracle. Can't see it right now. I think it's done. But I just look at this and it's simply not good enough. There was one thing I've not put in my notes that I did want to, we're probably not going to talk about, but a lot of people laying that we started Partey at right back here. And that's partly the reason why we didn't win, because our win percentage with Partey at right back is a lot worse than with him at central midfield. I think he was really good. I think he was fine. I think he does perfectly well in that position as cover that we needed. I don't think he's the reason we lost or drew, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, just before I go into it, I'm going to say one thing. Check your mic because I'm hearing feedback. So while I'm talking, just check which mic you got on.
No worries.
With Partey, I don't think he played badly at right back. I'd agree with you. I mean, I have been cautious and concerned when I've seen him at right back in the past, but in a way, we've got used to it as fans. And so it doesn't, he's not the first choice right back or the second choice right back, or even maybe the third choice right back. Tomiyasu, Timber, Ben White, but we don't have any of them. We didn't have any of them available. So, you know, you're making something work and it was fine. It did the job. The thing that I think we can critique on is deciding to play him right back opposed to putting someone else right back, because it's what you take away in the midfield. You know, that ability to spring a pass, that ability to cut through a few players in the middle and then release someone else, that quick feet, switching, being a kind of collection between the defense and Ødegaard. That's what we were missing. And I think that did impact the performance, especially going forward and especially in the second half. So, you know, you make that choice. And if you make that choice, you lose something else in the attack, and I think we did. Yeah,
I can agree with that. It's just I think I looked at a lot of discourse, and we talked about it on the last pod that Partey was likely going to play right back because we didn't have many options, and I just don't think he was. Like you say, maybe you're right. It's the lack of creativity in midfield and the lack of passing in midfield that has cost us there, and that he may have bought had he have played in his natural position.
Yeah.
Right. Let's go in and break it down a little bit. Then we're gonna start off with. Let's start off at the beginning to try and, as best as we can, to look at the lineup first and that first half. What did you think when you saw that lineup initially? Because I think I reflected on it and kind of looked at some of the problems that we had, the people that were missing. Did it have you worried, Jace, that this was a game that was going to be a challenging afternoon in the South Coast?
Immediately, I wasn't massively worried at the start of the game. It didn't. I mean, we knew Partey was going to play right back. We knew that was going to happen. So to see Marino, Rice in the midfield, and time to use Jorginho, I don't have any concerns with Jorginho. I think he's a very reliable player and he'll come in and do a job in specific games. He's getting the right amount of game time for his age and keeping him fresh when he needed. So I wasn't concerned by any of that. Ødegaard, look, I get that as well. We have a semi-final against Newcastle on Tuesday. Assume he's going to have to play. We also know that there's been an illness going round the squad, and I don't know what impact, did that have on Martin Ødegaard, and maybe that was, I don't know if he was ill or not, or was decision to just rest him. And we ultimately need to give players rests. We can't have them playing 90 minutes every other game. We have to have alternatives. The only problem with benching Ødegaard is you'd argue his alternative was playing on the right wing. And we really didn't have any other alternatives on the right wing. And I think the change we made at halftime proved that we didn't have any alternatives on the right wing. So I wasn't concerned. And I think we started the game with control, with a lot of possession in the first half. We got a goal. So I wasn't really worried. I mean, I can be critical that we didn't put it to bed in the first half. But also, I look at that lineup. That lineup was there to go away, to defend, to keep the game tight, to keep the possession of the ball, to shut them out. And in the first half, we did that and we kept the clean sheet. What changes we made in the second half made us vulnerable. And I think we did it to ourselves, not from the referee, in my personal opinion. And that's having to change your tactics to try and win the game when we should have just put it to bed in the first half. But like the starting lineup was perfectly adequate considering we've got lots of games and we're going to have to take changes and rest players at certain points. It made sense. I wasn't concerned by it.
So I looked at it maybe somewhat differently then, because I thought it was going to be a long afternoon. I looked at Partey at right back. I looked at lack of Ødegaard. I looked at no Havertz, no Saka, none of our no Timber, no obviously why I think that side was susceptible. And it could have been one of those games, right, that we just needed to kind of get through it by the skin of our teeth. And with the amount of players out, I'll be okay with that. And I think I agree with you on the first half. I wrote some kind of musings on the first half and some thoughts, and was kind of like, I think we did enough. I think we controlled large portions of that first half in our usual sense of how we control games. We were dominant. We passed the ball, actually. I think we moved it really, really quickly. And I thought actually some differences in the starting 11 probably made us a bit less robotic in the way that we play, because we don't have that familiarity with the starting 11 that we usually do. So I do think that there was, like you kind of said, we had enough and maybe we should have done more with it in that first half. I think my only I had a feeling that, and we're going to talk about this player maybe later on a little bit. I thought Trossard lining up against his old squad, and it's one of those moments where you're like, oh, it's going to be written in the stars. Trossard's going to bang a goal. He's going to silence all the boos, because every time he touched the ball, he got booed. And we're going to talk about him later, but it was just like, I literally can't remember anything he did. Anything at all. And that is worrying, particularly when you've got big players out and you need other players to step up. And we kind of said this about Martinelli. He just didn't. And I do also want to say that as leading into the second half, Anthony Taylor was losing control of this game. I think there was a sense here that the game was coming a bit dismantled, a bit fragile, a bit fragmented, really, really tense. It was heating up. And I think that he was losing control. And some of that maybe bled into the second half, which could have led to some of the decision-making that he made. But for me, is even the fact that he gave Nwaneri a yellow card for taking too long the corner. And I'm like, me and you have been in the Emirates enough times this season, last season, the seasons before, booing around the ground, watching teams waste time against us because it's a tactic that is commonly used against us. And nothing happens probably till about the 70th, 80th minute, particularly with the goalkeeper, who takes a long time over goal kicks. And I just couldn't fathom it. It was like, I know we talk a lot about maybe conspiracy theories that we're ref somewhat differently to other clubs. You just won't see it. You just won't see that yellow card given. And I don't know whether or not, I read after the game that Mikel had said he may have an injury, which is why he was taken off, which is another problem that we've got, if that is true. I assumed it was because he got the yellow and we didn't want to risk a whole second half with him, because he is young, he is naive, he can make rash calls in his play, which could have resulted in a red card would be somewhat worse. So that was somewhat worrying. I do think Anthony Taylor was losing some of that, and I do think some of that bled into the second half.
Have we got a section on Nwaneri? We have, haven't we?
Yes, we can go on to that right now if you like to.
Well, I wanted to get in. We're on it. and I wanted to get into it.
All right, well, let's go on to the positive. Probably the only positive. Would you agree? Only positive?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, he's the youngest Bossman we've ever seen. He's 17-year-old Ethan Nwaneri. He's filling in for a Bukayo Saka who's injured for like 2 or 3 months, and like the last pod, probably didn't notice much of a drop off. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think he was superb. The booking. So here's my view, because we started by talking about it. We said, was it the booking that meant he was taken off? If it was the injury, I get it. Like, you have to wrap the guy in cotton wool because he is going to be playing a lot of games on the right wing. And I think he's then going to grow in confidence and get better and better, which is exciting because we've already seen Saka over the last 5 years get better and better, and he's doing it at 17. So that's great. But I hadn't had the question, which was why risk the, why take him off? Just risk the yellow, because the balance that he brings to our squad and to the play is so much smoother. It actually enables Martinelli to be more effective on the other wing, because you don't ever want 2 wingers playing exactly the same way. Martinelli is direct with pace, kind of runs with his head down. We know he does. That's just how this is his way he plays. Whereas Nwaneri, we've said before, he's the closest attributes we've got to Bukayo Saka, and even the way he took the goal. You could put Saka in Nwaneri's position for the goal, and it's almost as identical. I think maybe Saka might have been a bit more mature to cut it back, but I'm glad he didn't. So he's had another amazing game. He's able to control the play. He's able to move himself out of tight positions. He's able to move around defenders. He has the confidence to take on defenders as well. I know he wasn't always successful. I think he did lose the ball in the final third a few times from trying to take players on when he maybe should have passed it. But I don't care about that. He's 17. And if you're going to make any mistakes anywhere on the field, let it be at the top of the pitch in the right wing. At least you're trying. That's what I care about. He's growing with each game. And personally, I unless he was injured, which I guess we'll find out in the coming days, it was crazy to take him off. It ruined the balance of the play and the balance of the game. And I think that's part of the reason why our attack was rubbish in the second half, because we already discussed the Martinelli should play on the left last podcast. I listened to many other podcasts, Arsenal podcasts this week, who've also said Martinelli should play on the left and the left only. Like, he can't play on the right. And it's very simple. Again, last night, I think he ran straight into someone. Did you see? I can't remember who the Brighton defender was, but literally, I just shouted at the TV because he got the ball, his head down, he tried to just kind of move.
Is that the one where he went down and tried to get a foul for it? And it was like, you ran into him.
He literally face-planted the guy in the chest. He face-planted the guy in the chest because he's running with his head down and he just hit the chest. And I was just like, oh, come on, man. Like, this... Yeah, anyway. So, yeah. Nwaneri, youngest boss man I've ever seen, yes. Is he going to be a superstar? I think so. I think he's clearly got the talent. He's now this is the time when we started to bring a very young Saka into the side, right? That 17, 18 age. So, yeah, I mean, I've got high hopes for him. And obviously we have to protect him from injury. We have to protect his growth, his muscles, his size, his strength, his development. But he looks very strong. He looks very calm, looks very composed, great technical feet. He reads the game really well. I love him already. And, just hopefully it's maybe he can be better in Saka. Who knows?
Yeah, Arteta did say really bad news because I think we've lost him. We had to take him off at halftime with some muscular issues. Now, muscular would maybe just be cramp. And so you maybe might see, like I like you, we don't have an embarrassment of riches at right wing. And thus, if he's out and you're having to put round pegs in square holes or vice versa, in Martinelli or others, that is somewhat worrying against Newcastle in the semi-final on Tuesday. Like you, agree, creating space, he makes good runs, he's very direct, his goal was well taken, all of those good things. I also, like you, because I want to temper my expectations a little bit because he's young, right? He's going to make mistakes. That much is a given. His decision making needs a little bit of work. He needs to look after the ball a little bit better. Like you, I kind of looked. He did lose the ball a few times in non-dangerous positions, so you can kind of forgive those and kind of accept them. And those learning curves will come with time and with playing. And it's good to be able to, put some confidence in him, some trust in him that he can join these games, play really, really well, make mistakes where they don't hurt us, and come out the better for it. Here's hoping that it's not a long-term thing, because, it would just be our season if it is, let's be honest, if there's another one, because why not just get them all out in the wash right now and then hopefully come out better for it later on in the season, who knows. But yeah, high hopes, big weight on his shoulders now to replace a player who is world class and doing a good enough job as we speak. Right, so the first I've got over, I then want to get onto, like I said, some of this bled into the second half. So let's talk about it. Anthony Taylor, the PMGOL mouthpiece, spokesperson, body that's kind of come out. Another referee, to add to the list of referees that are on Arteta's Christmas naughty list. But me and you might have similar opinions on this penalty call, because I've seen a lot of the discourse, as likely you have, on Reddit, on X, on everywhere, on all the socials. And a lot of the talk, I even watched the clip from Match of the Day, where Ian Wright, I think it was, and Mika Richards, and went through it and kind of said, it's two players accidentally coming together for the ball. You've never seen it given before. You won't ever see it given again. It's another Arsenal-ism, similar to the Declan Rice red card. Now, I'm going to just give you my view, Jason. Let me see what you kind of think. I don't see it as two players accidentally coming together. I see it as Pedro goes to head the ball and heads the ball. I see Saliba trying to head the ball where the ball was going to be, and it was no longer there, and Pedro's head was there instead. Pedro's then headed the ball onto Saliba's head afterwards, and a lot of people are calling that VAR didn't take a long enough check of the incident to kind of see how much of a touch that Saliba got. Saliba got the touch because Pedro headed it onto his head. And so for me, anywhere else on the pitch, that would have been given as a foul. I think Anthony Taylor actually took a bit of time. I don't think he was quite rash in his decision-making. I think he took a good few seconds to, in his head, think about what had happened and then make the decision. He didn't do it straight away. And so that's where I was kind of like, sometimes VAR will get involved in an incident and kind of say, maybe you didn't react slow enough in that incident, and then you had to think about it, go and look at the camera. I don't think VAR was ever going to overturn it, because I think there's enough in it there to kind of say, yes, it's a penalty versus no, it's not a penalty. It has to be really clear and obvious, like they say. Do I think that Anthony Taylor was looking to give it? No, I don't think he was. I don't think it was as bad. I think there was a lot of other incidents in this game that Anthony Taylor should be called out for than this one, in my opinion. There's a lot of yellow cards that Brighton should have had all over the pitch that were never given. I don't think the Nwaneri corner should have been given. I don't think you should be looking at this incident as the one. So in my opinion, like you maybe said it a bit earlier, some of this was our own undoing. And yes, you probably won't see this given ever again. I don't see this in the same bracket as the Declan Rice red card, as the Trossard red card. I just don't see it in the same kind of echelon of those decision makings. And I genuinely think, yes, it was an attempt with the ball, but Saliba missed the ball, got his man, and thus the penalty was given.
Yeah, I think, as you say, similar opinions. Joao Pedro headed the ball. Saliba went to head the ball. He was late, kind of headbutted him on the side. If you take the word head out and you place the word with foot, Pedro got his foot to the ball, Saliba got his foot onto Pedro. Then, because, place the word head with foot, and that's a foul by the written law, shall we say. So, yeah, I have no complaints with it. It was a foul. If you physically hit someone within their body, and head especially is an area which is sensitive and would be more cautious, more likely to give a foul anywhere on the pitch. If you hit that head and you stop them progressing, and that's what happened, is a foul. I think I rewatched on YouTube the highlights of the Premier League coverage, and Wrighty was doing the Premier League coverage with I don't know who else was on there, an extra Brighton striker, I think. But on there, he was a bit annoyed of how this was given as a pen. They brought Dermot Gallagher, the ref, on, and he said it was a pen. And then Wrighty went, well, what about Kulusevski against Newcastle? And if you watch that wasn't given. It's very similar in regards to like a head into chest, I think it was, or basically blocked him. And that also should be given a penalty, as it wasn't. So the main thing that I've seen this weekend again is inconsistent refereeing. And I think that is what I'm more annoyed about, to be honest. I think the Arsenal one was a pen, but it's annoying that you don't see consistency across the games. That's just the problem. We don't need to talk about it much here because, we could go on for ages about it, and it's not really Arsenal directly related. But, in short, no complaints.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a question for you then. I and you have likely been guilty of some red-tinted glasses over the course of this season with decisions. I know, unbelievable, right, Jess?
Me, never.
What do you think about that? Because I read some of the discourse, and usually I'm kind of up in arms and I'm in agreement, and I'm with a lot of other people that are on social media. I kind of agree, and this feels like one where I'm kind of like I'm not, and I don't know if I'm the problem, if we're the problem, or if they're the problem. You know what I mean? Do you think there is an element here where you could see it either side of that coin?
I mean, well, you're the problem, clearly. Actually, I mean, I think just everyone has a view on football, and everyone always has an element of rose-tinted glasses. I think at first, last night, I kind of had the rose-tinted glasses on. But the more I watched it, the more arguments I saw and reviewed it, I just came to a natural conclusion. I was like, yeah, take my rose-tinted glasses off. Take that Arsenal shirt off Saliba and put a Tottenham shirt on him and evaluate this. It's like, yeah, that's a penalty. I think everyone's going to have their perspectives. I don't. That's my view on your question. I think.
No, I agree with the points that you've made, because sometimes you look at it and you do. If you see that any other team, you'd be going, or if that was against us in the other way, if that was Brighton doing it to us, we would be, oh my God, Stonewall. How dare they not give us that penalty kind of thing? It's just it is bias, and I like you came to the same natural conclusion that in the heat of the moment, I was very much like, that's silly. I don't understand it. It's a bit of a weird one. We never see them given usually. I mean, a lot of time you might see that in the middle of the park where two players go up for a header, they bash heads, then they get a drop ball, you give them back to the team and you go again. That's occasionally what you might see. But in this instance, it's just not going to happen. The only thing a lot of people have said about is that Brighton players didn't really go up in arms about it.
I think it wasn't clear and obvious. That's the problem. It needed the replay. It needed the ref to be able to spot it in the moment. Because if it had been a tackle on the floor, you'd have seen them up in arms about it, like 100%. But because it was a coming together and there was a few players around them, clashing of heads, if you don't have a direct view, it happens so instantly like that in a click or a flash that you can't see exactly what Saliba has done, whether he's taken him out, whether he won the ball, whether he didn't. I just think that the players weren't in. It wasn't a clear and obvious decision for players on the pitch. They were all in different positions. Maybe some of them didn't even have sight of the ball. So,
yeah,
I still think they got the right decision. So,
agree. Okay, well, let's maybe, as you said at the start of the podcast, let's look inwards. Let's look at ourselves, because there's probably a lot to talk about with this second half, and maybe both of us are going to go on a little bit of a rant in some way, shape, or form with this, because after the goal went in for the penalty, 1-1, we had 30 minutes to come back into this game and make something for ourselves, and ultimately we didn't. It ended 1-1. Tell me, Jace, what do you want to look at in that second half? For me, it was shambolic. What do you think?
I think we set up wrongly in the second half. I think that it felt a little bit like the Ipswich game in the second half, like we weren't learning from our lessons. The only difference is we weren't playing Ipswich, we were playing Brighton, and Brighton can attack, unlike Ipswich. So we actually put ourselves at risk, especially after the goal, because Brighton were just, their tails were up, they were coming at us. But if you look at ourselves, how did we fight back? How did we push back? The ability going forwards was null and void, right? We've already discussed Martinelli. We know he doesn't work on the left. The other person for me I put on my list was Martin Ødegaard. Now, I don't know if
he was ill. He was ill.
He was ill.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you can tell he was ill because he wasn't great.
I had to watch some of the second half on my phone, so I didn't see the facial expression of Mr. Ødegaard. But there's no creativity there. He wasn't able to pull the strings how he usually does. I do feel without Saka or Nwaneri on that side of the pitch, he is a bit ineffective because Martinelli can't play in the same way. There isn't a bond, there isn't a connection. Now, I personally would have made a few different changes in regards to our attack going forwards because I feel like it was Ipswich all over again and we hadn't learned our lesson, as I say. I would have put Jesus on the right because he can interplay. He has more of the attributes of Saka and Nwaneri than Martinelli does. I'd have probably either put Martinelli down the middle and tried to put him through down the middle so that, we've seen many a time him be able to go down the middle, just knock the ball and watch him run. Where it would be a pass across from Partey or a pass across from Declan, straight down the middle, watch him run and one-on-one with the defender and gets his shot away. That would have created more opportunities. I know we don't typically always play that way. That's not in our game. But when Brighton were coming at us, when their tails were up, there was no reason why we couldn't have pivoted to that. In fact, we almost won the game against Brighton at home in that way because we were down to 10 men and we put Martinelli in that position. I remember it. And we got them on the counter. So I don't understand why we just refused to be tactically savvy when the game is going a certain way. And I think that's a failure. We just don't really change our game much. But it's obvious that the way we're set up in the front wasn't working. So yeah, I'd have had Jesus on the right. I'd have probably had Martinelli down the middle and I'd have probably kept Trossard on the left. But he was also a bit null and void in this game, especially in the second half. Mm-hmm. So that for me was the problem. Our defence, I think we absorbed everything that we needed to absorb. Brighton came at us. We absorbed most things. I think we got lucky with one where maybe the Brighton player should have cut back, but he went across the front of goal instead. And
their shooting was pretty poor, to be honest, because they had a couple where they were weirdly wayward into the stands. So if none of them really hit the target.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of teams not having luck, they haven't won in 8 games now. So that's, as for a Brighton team, you don't expect that. So maybe they're having a bad season as well. But either way, we have to focus on us, and we weren't good enough.
Yeah, but I agree with that.
The job they needed to do, but this comes back down to
like you say that.
Yeah, are we buying someone?
We're going to have to. Neither do I. Neither do I. If I'm honest with myself and ourselves, then I don't think we're signing anybody. Or at least not any player that we think we're going to sign, because it's a player. We're never those players that Cunha apparently is signing a new contract at Wolves. That was a player that apparently we were looking at. We're not going to get an Isak. It's just not going to happen at this level and this time into the season.
Yeah.
Big second half for me was just really passive, really toothless, no aggression, no urgency. I think that was the thing that stung the most to me was the urgency. There was times where we had free kicks. And it was annoying me how long we were taking over these free kicks and these corners. I'm not surprised the ref gave the yellow card. Maybe he shouldn't have done it when he did. But we were taking forever to set up these set pieces. And I know that's what Mikel Arteta's obviously told the team to do. We're 1-1. We need to beat this team to put pressure on Liverpool. There is no two ways about it. And 88 minutes. we're kind of organising ourselves and figuring out no, get a ball in the box and try and score a goal. You haven't got the time to be considering what set piece we're going to do, which number from the playbook we're going to play. It was really frustrating for me watching it. And my wife was sat next to me. He was getting incredibly telling me to stop swearing in front of the kids, which I apologize for. But it was just one of those things that it was just, it's the things that you say, inwardly looking, we can look after ourselves. We can tell ourselves to do things differently. We can act differently. We can behave differently. And we didn't. And I think, like I kind of said earlier, Trossard was one for me. And you didn't even mention him. And the fact that you didn't mention him just goes to show because he did nothing. He didn't do anything that was terrible. He didn't give the ball away. He didn't score an own goal. But he was generally shit. He just didn't really do anything.
Skied a few over the bar in the first half.
And that's the thing. You always think, I like I said, his name at the start of the game, I thought, oh, here we go. Against your old club, here's a chance to prove yourself, to put one in, to silence the haters. And he got booed at every touch of the ball, and rightly so, because he stunk up the joint. It was an awful performance. And you're right, every time he had a shot, it was just wayward. It wasn't very controlled. It was very kind of snapped at. It just wasn't there. It wasn't great. And I think the only other thing I was going to say, Mikel Marino, I talked about him in the last pod, and you kind of said, actually, I think there's a player there, and I think he did really, really well. I think you also said we're not going to see him again until Man United. Maybe. But forced our hand a little bit here. But I was thinking after the first half, I was actually, he was shooting, he was connecting the midfield, he was playing in a lot of different positions, he was getting all over the pitch. I was actually thinking he looked quite good. And I know, like I said, I don't know what I'm looking for and I don't know what I'm watching. And I don't think he necessarily had to do the things that I talked about on the last pod, which was the defensive attributes, the kind of breaking up the play, the aerial duels that we all know he's renowned for in Spain. The second half, Jesus Christ. He was off the pace. He was leggy. He was giving sloppy balls left, right, and centre. It was awful second half, in my opinion, from him. And I think it's partly because he's just not used to this league yet. I think that he's just not at the pace of this league yet. Someone threw up a stat after the Brentford game where they said he did really, really well. And they threw up this whole thing where he's the best in Europe's top 5 leagues in 2024 for breaking up the play, aerial duels, and kind of tackles and stuff like that. And that's because most of that he played in Spain, where I'm not to downplay the Spanish league, but it is not the Premier League. It is not up to the same level of the Premier League. And he's slowly, in my opinion, being found out, and he's not good enough. That second half was frankly shocking. And I was really happy to start giving some flowers to him because I wanted to say I was wrong. I don't think I was wrong. I think he's shit.
I mean, I called him out. I made a point of making a note, which was in the first half. I thought he's really interconnecting really well. And I thought he was gelling really, really well. So I definitely saw what you mentioned there in the first half. And he wasn't amazing in the second half, I agree. But I don't think the whole squad was either.
Maybe I'm looking for scapegoats, Chase.
Yeah, looking for a scapegoat. Yeah, sure, he can be one. But the whole squad did not perform in the second half. I don't think you blame one player here.
I think one reflection after this conversation that we've had that I'm kind of thinking of. It's funny at how much venom we're spitting on a draw away at Brighton. Because ultimately, if you had have probably asked us at the start of the season, would a draw away at Brighton be a good result? You would have probably said it's an okay result.
Draw away at Brighton is an okay result. It's always I don't know why, ever since they've been in the league, it's been a tricky place for us to go. The last few years, we have won quite comprehensively, but we always know it's a tricky place to go. And we've had some awkward encounters against Brighton. They always seem to get a draw, beat us at home as well. So, look, I don't like playing Brighton. I don't, I always worry about them. I was thinking about this a bit, and I was like, 4 points from 6 away at Brentford and away at Brighton isn't bad. They're both very hard places to go. But that means that you have to, and there is 3 points is the only thing that we'll do against Spurs and Villa. The next 2 league games we cannot lose. We can't draw either because we've drawn too many games.
7 games we've drawn this season already. That is mental.
Out of 90, is it 19, 20 games we've played?
19 games, yeah. No, 20 games, you're right, yeah.
So, yeah, and we lost 2, won 11 then. So, yeah, it's too many. You're leaving too many points on the table.
Dropping 4 points against Brighton, home and away.
Yeah, exactly.
It's quite bad, generally speaking.
So,
and I know there's circumstances in both of those games that you can look at, but still.
Yeah, ultimately, I don't think I will never say never because I know that I now know that the squad will always fight till the end. I think that's how Mikel's got them set up. He learned from mistakes in the past. We've discussed it before. We'll fight to the end. But I won't. I'm not expecting a league title this season. I'm expecting a good cup run in one of the cups, whether it's Champions League, FA Cup, or we get to the League Cup. I may be expecting a final in a domestic or in a European tournament, but I'm not expecting the league title.
All the eggs aren't quite in that basket yet then, Jace?
No.
All right, well, we're going to be back again on Tuesday. Myself and you will be in the ground watching that semi-final against Newcastle. Or you're not? Oh, you won't be.
I'll give him my ticket to our friend.
Oh, okay, so cool. Well, I'll be joining him then in the grounds and hoping to make a final. We need to put a good marker down in that game because St James's Park for the second leg is going to be a toughie. What do you think, Jason? Let's give a little bit of a prediction.
I think we have to win, and we have to win comprehensively at home because having an away leg at St James's Park is never going to be a fun environment. Again, that's quite a hostile place. Again, it's always a ground we struggle at. Or we don't see our best performances. So I'm going to go 3-0 because that's the result I want to see.
So he's going head over heart or heart over head, depending on which way you want to look at it.
I mean, if you ask me before we do our guess on our league, we do between us and our other friend,
It'll be 3-1.
I'll be 2-1, I think. But my heart wants 3-0 because we need the win to make it an easier second leg at St James's and kind of put it to bed early.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to go 2-1 then. Why not?
Always the realist.
Yeah, that's me. Right. So we'll be back. Thank you once again for joining us. If you have lasted this long, we really do appreciate you joining us on the channel. Remember, please do give the video a like. Please do give the channel a subscribe, and please do make sure that you leave a comment down below what you thought of this Arsenal performance against Brighton. If you're listening on your podcast provider of choice, what do we want our audience to do, Jace?
Yeah, so if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcast provider, make sure you subscribe to our feeds. That means that the latest episode will be in your app, ready for you to listen to as soon as we publish it live. And leave us a star rating and a review, please. 5 stars, no less. Else Greg gets angry. Yeah. Apart from that, enjoy.
Nice. Yes, and have a lovely Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you again next week.
Cheers, guys.